I am 74 years old and I am tired. Tired of the concrete walls, tired of the city noise, tired of the loneliness hidden behind the door of my 16th floor apartment. My Cordelia left 5 years ago. Cancer doesn't ask whether or not you're ready to let go of a loved one. It just takes 46 years together, and suddenly there's nothing. At first, I tried to pretend nothing had changed. I kept going to the same stores, cooking for two, talking to her in the evenings. Then I realized the ridiculousness of the situation and fell into apathy. For months, I didn't answer the phone, ate convenience foods, slept in a chair in front of the TV. Ivan, my only son, dropped by every few weeks to see if his old man was still alive. I worked as a geological engineer for almost 50 years. The oil companies pay well for people who can find the black gold beneath the earth. Cordelia and I were never rich, but we weren't poor. We saved for our old age, for Ivan's education, for trips that never happened. When she got sick, all our savings were used for treatment. The best clinics, experimental methods, all in vain. After her death, I received insurance, an impressive sum, which I decided not to touch. The pension was enough for a modest life in our apartment in the center of Midland. But time passed and I realized this house, holding so many memories, was slowly killing me. The decision came suddenly. I was leafing through the newspaper and came across an ad for a country house. 2 floors, a plot of half a hectare, silence, forest, lake nearby. A place where you can meet the sunrise, garden, have a dog. All the things we dreamed of with Cordelia in retirement. The price was a steep $1,200,000. But if I sold the apartment, added insurance, and part of my savings, it was realistic. I called the realtor the same day. A week later, I already inspected the house. Old, requiring repair, but strong and with a character like myself. Another month later, I was signing the papers. Ivan found out about my decision after the fact, and his reaction was predictable. "Dad, are you crazy?" He was indignant on the phone. "You're 74. What country house? Who will look after you? What if you fall down and have a heart attack?" Ivan is 46. He's got a life of his own, a wife, Chastity, 2 children, Hillary, 12, Lancelot, 10. When Cordelia was alive, they came every Sunday for lunch. After her death, visits had become rare. Only on holidays or when they needed something. And they usually needed one thing: money, children's education, car repairs, roof replacement, dentist. Each time a new reason, each time urgent. Ivan works as an accountant for a construction company, Chastity as an interior designer. It would seem they should be living comfortably, but they're always broke. A new car on credit, designer clothes for the kids, vacations twice a year. My objections about the need to save money always met the same way. "Dad, you do not understand modern life. You can't live like a hermit with a bank account. You have to seize the moment." I didn't argue. I just pulled out my checkbook and wrote out the next installment. Chastity never forgot to kiss me on the cheek and say, "Thanks, Daddy. You're a lifesaver." Ivan promised to pay me back at the first opportunity, but the opportunity never came. The last 2 years, it's gotten worse. They stopped even pretending to need my company. They only called to ask for money. The grandchildren didn't remember my birthday. Chastity got annoyed when I called just to talk. "Clifford, I'm sorry, but I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Can we do this another time?" Another time never came. When I announced the sale of the apartment, Ivan suddenly became concerned. "Where are you going to live while you build the house?" "I'm not building. I'm buying a ready-made one." "How much?" I said the amount, and there was silence in the phone. "Where'd you get all that money?" he finally asked. "From the sale of the apartment, my mom's insurance, my savings." "I mean, you're going to spend it all?" "Almost." 2 days later, they came as a family for the first time in a year. Hillary hugged me and whispered, "Grandpa, Mom said you have money for a new iPhone for me?" Lancelot was more direct. "Hey, Grandpa, is it true you bought a house with a pool?" Chastity spent the whole evening asking about the house, the layout, how many bedrooms and bathrooms it had. Ivan sat in silence, occasionally casting meaningful glances at his wife. When the children left to watch TV, Chastity put her hand on mine and said in that sweet voice that only came out of her when she talked about money, "Clifford, dear, Ivan and I have been thinking, maybe you'll change your mind after all. Why do you need a big house? All that worry and expense. At your age, you need peace and quiet. We could find you a nice smaller apartment, closer to us. And the difference? Well, you could put it in an account for your grandchildren, for their education. I looked at my son. He averted his eyes. The decision has been made, I said. The papers are signed. I'm moving in a month. But Dad, Ivan finally stepped in. That's crazy. Who will look after such a huge house? Mow the grass, shovel the snow in the winter? What if the roof leaks or the heating breaks down? I can handle it, I said. I've done it all my life, and I can do it now. You're selfish. Chastity suddenly snapped out of her pretense of concern. You think only of yourself. You've saved money all your life, and now you've decided to spend it on frivolities instead of helping your own son and grandchildren. I didn't say a word. It's no use arguing with Chastity. She'll always find a way to make you look guilty. After they left, I sat in the chair for a long time, looking at Cordelia's picture. What would she say? Probably the same thing she'd said when she was alive. Cliff, don't let anyone dictate how you live your life. The move went surprisingly smoothly. I didn't take a lot of stuff from the city apartment. I wanted to start from scratch. Just books, a few paintings, photo albums, Cordelia's mahogany desk. The rest I sold or gave away. The house greeted me with the creak of floorboards and the smell of uninhabited space. 2 stories, spacious with a veranda and attic. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, large kitchen, living room with fireplace. The old owners had left some of the furniture, massive closets, dining table, beds. For the first week, I just walked around the rooms, getting used to the new spaces, planning what and where to place. The house stood on the outskirts of a small village about 20 minutes from Midland. The neighbors were mostly retirees or families with children, escaping the hustle and bustle of the city. To my right lived the Hendersons, a 70-year-old couple who had moved from New York City. On the left were the Carmichaels with 3 children and a dog. Mrs. Henderson brought blueberry pie to the housewarming party and offered to show me where the nearest stores, pharmacy, and health clinic were. Mr. Carmichael helped set up the lawnmower and explained how the local water system worked. Their children looked at me with curiosity. I guess they didn't often see people my age. I quickly got the hang of it. In the morning, I went out on the veranda with a cup of coffee, listened to the birds, watched the squirrels in the garden. In the afternoon, I worked in the vegetable garden. I made beds for vegetables, planted a few fruit trees. In the evenings, I read in a chair by the fireplace or watched old movies. He ordered seeds of rare flowers from the internet. Cordelia had always dreamed of having her own garden. He wanted to make a heart-shaped flower bed in her memory. A neighbor boy, Peter Carmichael, offered to help me with the hard work in the garden for a small fee. A 15-year-old lad with a serious look and strong hands. I agreed. Some things were really hard for me to do. Besides, it's nice to have company. We talked about school, about his plans to become an engineer, about fishing on a nearby lake. I hadn't heard from Ivan and Chastity in almost a month. I didn't call. I figured if they were interested in how I was doing, they'd show up. Sometimes there were messages from my grandchildren asking me to send them money for new headphones or sneakers. I answered that now all the money was invested in the house improvement, and the conversation ended. One evening, sitting on the veranda and looking at the sunset, I caught myself thinking that for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. There is no oppressive loneliness of high-rise apartment buildings, no feeling of being unwanted and abandoned. Here, surrounded by nature, in a house that is gradually becoming mine, I feel alive again. There are plans for tomorrow, for the next month, for the year ahead. I thought about how I would set up a library in one of the rooms, how I would plant a hedge along the fence in the spring, how I would greet sunsets on the west veranda with a glass of wine. Simple joys that are more precious than all the money in the world. A phone call snapped me out of my reverie. My son's name popped up on the screen. "Daddy, how are you?" Ivan's voice sounded unusually cheerful. "Sakikuna, fine," I answered. "I'm settling in. I've planted a garden, vegetables." "That's great. Chastity and I were just saying that we should come and see how you were settling in." I hesitated to answer. Over the years, I'd learned to recognize the falseness in my son's voice. "I'd be glad to," I said at last. When are you planning on going? We were thinking this weekend, if you don't mind. An overnight stay so we can get a good look around. The kids want to come too. They miss their grandpa. Miss him, I chuckled mentally. I'd seen my grandchildren 3 times in the last year, and each time they looked at their phones more than at me. Come on over, I replied. There's plenty of room for everyone. Great. We'll be there Saturday afternoon. Do you mind if we bring Trish? Trish was a Labrador they'd gotten a year ago, without thinking about the dog's need for attention and care. Now, the dog sat alone at home most of the time, or he was taken to a friend's house for the next vacation. Bring him in, I agreed. Here he will have a place to run. After the conversation, I sat looking at the darkening sky for a long time. Something about this sudden interest in my life was unsettling. Maybe I'd gotten too suspicious. Maybe they really missed me and wanted to connect. In the morning, I made a shopping list. I had to buy groceries for the weekend, prepare the guest rooms, tidy up the garden. I wanted their first visit to leave a good impression. No matter what, they are my family, and deep down, I hoped the move would be a new chapter, not only in my life, but in our relationship. I chose the largest bedroom overlooking the garden for Ivan and Chastity. For the children, 2 adjoining rooms on the second floor. I made the beds with fresh linens, arranged the flowers, prepared the towels. I loaded the fridge with their favorite foods, steaks for Ivan, organic vegetables for Chastity, ice cream for the kids. In the evening, after finishing the preparations, I stepped out onto the porch. The sun was setting over the horizon, coloring the sky orange and pink. A light breeze rustled the leaves, and a dog barked somewhere in the distance. I took a deep breath of fresh air and smiled. This is my home, my sanctuary, my fortress. Every morning I wake up with the first rays of the sun. The city habit of pulling the curtains is a thing of the past. Here in the countryside, I want to feel every moment of the new day. I like to lie in bed for a few minutes, watching the sunlight slowly fill the room, listening to the birds singing outside the window. It's moments like these that I can almost physically feel time slowing down. Within 2 weeks of moving in, I began to slowly make this house my own. Cordelia's desk took pride of place by the window in my bedroom. Her picture is on the bedside table. In the kitchen, I hung the clock she had given me for our 40th wedding anniversary, an old-fashioned beating clock that measured time in a measured and solid way as we lived our lives. The library became my major project. The third room on the second floor with its high ceiling and bay window seemed made for books. I ordered custom-designed bookcases, dark wood, glass doors, carved details. The craftsman from the neighboring town, a gray-haired Peter Webb, worked slowly, but every detail came out of his hands flawless. My father always said, "Peter, furniture should outlive its maker," he said, running his hand over the smooth surface of a shelf. These cabinets will last 100 years, no less. I hope the books will find new readers after me, I replied, looking at the boxes of books waiting to be read. Webb looked at me carefully. Any children, grandchildren, son, daughter-in-law, 2 grandchildren. Do they like to read? I pictured Hillary and Lancelot staring at their phones, Chastity with a glossy magazine, Ivan perusing the business press. Not really, Webb shrugged. There's still time. Books can wait. Day by day, I settled into the house, filling it not only with things, but with new memories. Morning coffee on the veranda, reading in the chair by the fireplace, working in the garden until sunset. Sometimes neighbors would drop by. Jean Henderson would bring homemade cookies or jam. Her husband Robert would share newspapers and magazines. One evening, the doorbell rang. On the threshold stood a woman in her 60s with short gray hair and penetrating blue eyes. Meredith Hope, she introduced herself, extending her hand. I live across the street. Thought I'd finally meet my new neighbor. I invited her in, and we spent the evening talking and drinking tea. Meredith turned out to be a former literature professor, retired 5 years ago. She was widowed, like me, but much earlier. Her husband had died in a car accident 20 years earlier. They had no children. After Jonathan's death, I went to work, she said. University students' books. It saved me from despair. And when I retired, I decided I wanted peace and quiet. How do you live alone, as I asked, thinking about my loneliness? Meredith smiled. You know, Clifford, there is a big difference between loneliness and solitude. I'm not lonely. I have friends, former colleagues, neighbors. but I value my solitude. It gives me the opportunity to hear my own thoughts. Her words made me think. All my life I've been part of a couple, part of a family. After Cordelia died, I felt lost, incomplete. But maybe at my age, seclusion isn't a punishment, but a gift. An opportunity to finally live for myself, to listen to my own desires, to follow my own rhythms. Our meetings with Meredith became regular. On Tuesdays, she would come to my house for tea. On Fridays, I would drop by for a glass of wine and a game of chess. We exchanged books, discussed what we'd read, shared life stories. Meredith never asked about my family, as if she sensed that the subject hurt. Gradually, I made other acquaintances. On Thursdays, the local library had a book club, mostly retired people discussing classics and contemporary literature. At the supermarket, I met Lawrence Douglas, a former military pilot who now led a modeling group for local children. He invited me to join. "You have an engineering mind, Cliff," he said when I told him about my work. "Sure, we're short of someone who can explain the principles of aerodynamics to the kids." So Tuesdays were added to my schedule. In Lawrence's garage, among model airplanes and enthusiastic teenagers. I loved to see their eyes light up when they could get a model up and running, to argue about design and specifications. Days added up to weeks. I got used to the new house, to the silence at night, to the smell of freshly cut grass, to the care of the gardener. I started a small vegetable garden, tomatoes, cucumbers, herbs. Gene Henderson showed how to properly compost plant residue. Robert shared the secrets of growing strawberries. On weekends, I set up a workshop in the backyard. I bought a workbench and tools. I started making birdhouses, bird feeders, small garden sculptures. My hands remembered the skills I had learned as a child from my father, a cabinet maker. I loved working with wood, a living, warm material that responds to every movement of the tool. On weekdays, I often went to the city, to the library, to the museum, sometimes just to walk along familiar streets. Midland is a small industrial town, but with a rich history. I loved wandering through the old neighborhoods, looking at Victorian mansions, sitting on a park bench with a book. One day, on my way back from the city, I saw Peter Carmichael, a neighborhood boy who was helping me in the garden. He was walking along the road with his head down. "Can I give him a ride?" I offered, pulling up beside him. Peter climbed into the passenger seat and was silent for a while. "Is something wrong?" I asked, pulling onto the main road. "No reason. There's trouble at school." "What kind of trouble?" He shrugged. "Mr. Reeves, do you ever feel like no one understands you? That you speak a different language?" I smiled involuntarily. "Every day when I talk to my son and his wife. At least it's understandable with parents. They are a different generation. But when your peers look at you as a weirdo," Peter was into robotics, dreamed of going to technical college. At school, he was considered a nerd, teased for his passion for science. "You know," I said, "when I was 14, I collected minerals. I dragged home every unusual rock, reading geology journals while my peers played ball. They didn't understand me either. And then I became a geological engineer and traveled halfway around the world in search of oil. What seems like a strange hobby in childhood can become a lifelong endeavor." Peter nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think I could become an engineer?" "I'm sure of it. You have an inquisitive mind and golden hands. You know what? If you want, you can come to my workshop. I'll show you some tools, teach you about electronics." The boy's eyes lit up. "Can I?" "Sure. After all, sometimes I want someone who speaks the same language." From then on, Peter spent a few hours in my workshop on Sundays. We repaired an old radio, assembled simple electronic circuits. I'd talk about my projects, he'd share school news. Sometimes we would just sit on the veranda with lemonade, watching the sunset and talking about the future. I caught myself thinking that I was more in touch with the neighborhood boy than with my own grandchildren. When was the last time I saw Hillary and Lancelot? 2 months ago, I think. They stopped by for half an hour to borrow money for new computer games. Ivan and Chastity didn't pay much attention to me either. After the move, I called them every week, telling them about the house, about new acquaintances. They listened half-heartedly, asked if I needed help, obviously hoping for a negative answer, and quickly ended the conversation. I stopped calling. I decided that if they were interested in how their father and grandfather lived, they would find the time themselves. As the weeks went by, the phone went silent. Sometimes I felt a prick of resentment. Did they really care that much? But then I remembered our last meetings, the tense conversations, the eternal requests for money, and resentment gave way to humility. That day, I had been working in the garden since morning. The middle of June was hot, but it was cool under the old apple tree. I was pruning the lilac bushes, planning to make a pergola here next year. The phone rang unexpectedly. I rarely took it with me to the garden. "Dad, it's me." Yvonne's voice sounded unusually cheerful. How are you?" "Fine," I answered, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "I'm working in the garden. And you?" "Great. Listen, Chastity and I were thinking we should have a housewarming party. How long have you been there?" "3 months, and we still haven't seen your new house." I hesitated to answer. It was strange to hear such enthusiasm from a son who hadn't been interested in my life all this time. "Come," I said at last. "I'll be glad to see you." "Good." Yvonne seemed genuinely pleased. "How about next weekend? We could come Friday night, spend the night, and then have a real party on Saturday. Chastity will make her specialty pie. The kids will bring presents." "Presents? From the kids who forgot to wish me a happy birthday last month?" "Okay," I agreed, suppressing my suspicions. "I'll see you Friday. The rooms are ready." "Wonderful. Father, this is something to celebrate. We'll be at your place in an hour." "An hour?" I asked in surprise. "You said next weekend, didn't you?" "Oh, no, no, no," Ivan laughed. "Next weekend we have other plans. We'll be there now. Chastity is already packing the picnic basket. The kids are excited. See you in an hour." The phone went silent. I slowly sank down on the bench under the apple tree. What's going on? They've shown no interest in my life over the past few months, and now they're suddenly scrambling out of the way for an impromptu picnic? I glanced at my watch. It's almost noon. If they left now, they'd be here by 1 o'clock. We need to get cleaned up, get the house ready for guests. I'd been wanting to show them around for a long time, but I didn't think it would be so sudden. Saturday morning was sunny and clear. I woke up earlier than usual. Anxious thoughts about the family's sudden visit kept me awake. Something about their behavior alarmed me. Too much enthusiasm, too much excitement. They had never been so interested in my life. But maybe I'd just become an imaginative old man. Maybe they really wanted to spend the day with their father and grandfather. In the end, the house did turn out great. Spacious, cozy, with a large garden. The perfect place for a family picnic. I went out on the veranda with a cup of coffee. The sun was already rising over the neighbors' roofs, promising a hot day. Birds were singing in the garden, the dew on the grass still wet from the morning sun. The family arrived yesterday around 1 o'clock. We had a wonderful day. We walked around the garden, had a picnic under the old oak tree, grilled meat in the evening. The children helped me pick strawberries. Chastity picked a bunch of wildflowers for the dinner table. Ivan looked around my workshop with interest. Everything looked idyllic. And then they stayed the night. I was glad. The big house was finally filled with voices, with laughter, with life. Hillary and Lancelot quickly settled into the guest rooms, Chastity and Ivan in the bedroom overlooking the garden. We agreed that in the morning I would make the traditional Saturday breakfast, pancakes with maple syrup like Cordelia used to make. As I finished my coffee, I heard the sound of a car pulling up. That's odd. It was still only 7 in the morning. Who could it be? I stepped out onto the porch and froze with surprise. A large truck pulled up to the gate, driven by a man I didn't recognize. Another car, a minivan, pulled up next to it, and Yvonne jumped out. "Dad," he waved at me. "You're up. All right." "What's going on?" I asked, looking at the truck. "Who's that?" "This?" Ivan waved his hand. "We thought we'd bring some things from home. Since we're staying for the weekend, the kids need things. Toys. You know how attached they are to their stuff." I watched 2 more men get out of the truck. Big guys in overalls. "You hired movers to bring the kids toys?" I asked incredulously. "Well, not just toys," Ivan smiled, but it was a strange smile. Chastity wanted to take some of the furniture, some of the dishes. You know how women like to cook in their kitchen. At that moment, the back door of the truck rolled aside, and I saw its contents. Couches, chairs, tables, boxes, suitcases. It didn't look like weekend stuff. It looked like moving. Ivan, my voice dropped to a whisper. What's going on? Let's go inside, Dad. My son took me under his arm. We'll explain everything. The whole family was already gathered in the living room. Chastity, fresh and alert, as if she hadn't slept all night, was typing something quickly on her phone. The children were sitting on the couch, talking excitedly. Grandpa, Lancelot exclaimed, we're moving in with you. Isn't that great? I slowly sank into the chair, feeling my heart start to beat faster. Moving in? I repeated. What do you mean you're moving? Chastity looked up from the phone. Clifford, we wanted to surprise you. Ivan and I discussed it at length and decided it would be best for everyone. You're here alone in a huge house, we're in the city in a cramped apartment, and this way the family will be together. But, I stammered, unable to find the words. But this is my house. I bought it for me. I didn't plan. Dad, Ivan sat down across from me. You said yourself yesterday how lonely you were. How glad you are that we're here. Wouldn't it be better if we all lived together? You're not young anymore. You need supervision and help. I'm 74 years old, I objected. I'm perfectly fine. And I didn't say I was lonely. On the contrary, I have friends, activities. At your age, Chastity sat down on the arm of Ivan's chair. You can't live alone. What if something happens? A heart attack? A fall? Who's going to help? We're worried about you, Clifford. I looked from one face to the other. I saw impatience in Chastity's eyes, determination in Ivan's. They'd already made up their minds. Without me. What about your apartment? I asked. The job? The kids' school? We rented the apartment, Ivan said. We'll transfer the children's school here because the school year is over, and in the fall they'll go to the local school. It's a 40-minute car ride from my work, which is fine. Chastity can work remotely. But I started. The movers are here, Dad, my son interrupted me. Let's get a room. Chastity and I need a big bedroom. The one you gave us yesterday will be perfect. The kids are already settled into theirs. And for you. I think Grandfather would be comfortable in the room on the first floor, Chastity said. The one next to the kitchen. It's hard for you to climb stairs, isn't it, Clifford? It's not hard for me. I objected, but no one was listening. Chastity went out to meet the movers, and Yvonne followed. The kids rushed to the window, watching their things being unloaded from the truck. I remained seated in the chair, trying to comprehend what was happening. This is some kind of nightmare. Yesterday I was the owner of this house making plans for the future, and today I'm just faced with the fact that they're moving. Without asking, without warning. The next few hours passed like a blur. The movers hauled furniture, boxes, suitcases. Chastity commanded, telling them what to carry and where to carry it. Even paced between the house and the truck with a concerned look. The kids were running around the rooms, picking out places for their toys. I stood on the veranda, watching my quiet, cozy house turn into a train station. Unfamiliar furniture, someone else's belongings, paintings in garishly bright frames were being carried past me. No one asked my opinion. No one was interested in my feelings. By lunchtime, the truck was unloaded. The living room was unrecognizably changed. My old armchair had been pushed into a corner, making room for a leather couch and two massive armchairs. A huge TV was hung on the wall. My books were boxed off the shelves to make room for Chastity's figurine collection. Dad, Ivan came over to me with a guilty look. We've been thinking your bedroom would be better for the kids. They need more space, and you can move to the room on the first floor. It's quiet and peaceful. My bedroom? I questioned. But all my stuff is in there. Cordelia's desk, her pictures. We'll move everything carefully, he assured me. Don't worry. Half an hour later, I watched the movers move out of my bedroom the furniture I'd chosen, arranged, and gotten used to. Cordelia's things were put in boxes, not much cared for. Her desk was put in the hallway because there was no room for it yet. Where did you put Mom's picture? I asked Ivan, not finding it on the bedside table. Oh, that old one? He waved his hand. Chastity had put it away in a drawer, said it didn't fit in with the new decor. By evening, I was finally moved into a small room on the first floor, which I planned to use as a guest room for elderly guests. 10 square meters, a narrow bed, a small closet. My stuff was piled in the corner in boxes. You can sort it out later, Dad. At dinner, I tried to bring up the sudden move again. I didn't agree to you living here, I said, looking at Ivan. I bought this house for myself. I spent all my savings so that I could have a corner of my own in my old age. Ivan and Chastity looked at each other. Dad, the son began patiently, we're doing this for your own good. You can't live alone in a house this big. It's dangerous. And besides, don't you like having grandchildren around? You always said you wanted to see them more often. Seeing them more often, yes, I agreed. But that doesn't mean that I'm willing to give you the whole house and I'm going to live in a small room. Don't be so dramatic, Clifford. Chastity rolled her eyes. It's a perfectly decent room. At your age, you should be glad you have someone to take care of you. You didn't ask me, I continued, my anger rising to my throat. You just put me in front of the fact. This is my house. I bought it. And very fortunately, Chastity muttered under her breath, but I heard her. What do you mean? I asked sharply. Nothing, she said with a strained smile. I was just saying that you've chosen the house well. It's perfect for a family. I got up from the table. I want you to pack your things tomorrow and go back to your apartment. There was silence in the room. Ivan slowly put down his fork. Dad, that's impossible. We've already rented out the apartment. We have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I replied. You didn't ask my permission. You invaded my home. Clifford, Chastity stepped forward. You don't understand. We're not just doing this for ourselves. We're worried about you. You've become forgetful, distracted. Remember last month when you forgot our birthdays? I didn't forget, I countered. Huh, I sent cards and presents. See? Chastity looked at Yvonne victoriously. He doesn't even remember that he didn't congratulate us. Dad, Yvonne took my hand. Please sit down. We need to have a serious talk. I sat down, feeling my strength leaving me. What's going on? Have I really forgotten something? Or is it them manipulating me? Lately, Ivan began, as if he'd rehearsed this speech, we've noticed that you've been changing, forgetting important dates, events. Sometimes you say strange things. We consulted a doctor. He said that at your age, it could be the beginning of certain processes. Dementia, Chastity interjected unceremoniously. The doctor said it could be the beginning of dementia. I stared at them, not believing my ears. Dementia? Yes, I forget little things sometimes, but who doesn't? I have a clear head. I read complex books, solve crossword puzzles, teach children the principles of aerodynamics. That's absurd, I said firmly. I'm perfectly fine, and I want you out of my house. See? Chastity turned to Ivan. Aggression, denial, all the signs. I'm not aggressive, I exclaimed, and then I realized I'd raised my voice. Aloha. Daddy, Ivan spoke softly, as if to a child. We're going to stay here. We'll keep an eye on you. And if you get worse, we'll think about an institution where professionals can take care of you. A nursing home, Chastity put in again. You'll be better off there than you are here. The company of your peers, the medical care. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of my house. Daddy, Ivan started. Get out! I slammed my fist on the table, and the dishes bounced. The children who had been silently watching the conversation shrieked in fright. Chastity jumped up, pulling them to her. See, Ivan, he's dangerous. He has fits of rage. What if he attacks the children? I've never laid a hand on children in my life, I said, trying to calm myself. And you know that very well. We don't know what you're capable of in your condition. Chastity retreated toward the door, pulling the children with her. Ivan, we have to do something. My son looked at me with an unreadable expression. Dad, you need to calm down. Go to your room, get some rest. We'll talk in the morning when you're in better condition. I'm in great condition, I objected, and I want you out of my house. It's already our house too, Yvonne said quietly. Samarneo, and we're not going anywhere. I walked out of the kitchen, feeling my knees shake. What's going on? Why are they acting like this? Do they really want my house so badly that they're willing to declare me crazy? In my new room, I sat on the bed, wrapping my arms around my head. I need to calm down, to think. Maybe they'd come to their senses in the morning. Maybe this is some kind of misunderstanding. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. Ivan brought me some tea. Dad, drink it, please. It's a soothing Melissa tea. It will make you feel better. I took the cup without looking at my son. Thank you. Dad, he sat down next to me. We really want what's best for you. Think about it. Is it bad that we'll live together? A big family in a big house. You won't be alone. We'll help with the farm, with the garden. The children will be able to spend more time with you. I was silent, staring into my cup. The tea smelled strange, not just molasses, something else, bitter. Just give us a chance, Stephen continued. Please, for Mom's sake. She'd want us to take care of you. He walked out, quietly closing the door behind him. I set the cup on the nightstand without touching the tea. Something told me not to drink it. The next few days passed in some strange fog. I felt like a guest in my own home, unwelcome, and extra. Chastity completely remodeled the kitchen, throwing out my old dishes and cooking utensils. My beating clock, a gift from Cordelia, was gone from the wall. It's too loud, the kids can't sleep. The TV in the living room was now running constantly. Reality shows, sports channels, cartoons. My chair had been pushed so far into the corner that sitting in it, I couldn't see the fireplace or the window. In the garden, Chastity's renovation, my vegetable beds were uprooted to make room for an inflatable pool. The rose bed I planted in Cordelia's memory has been converted into a barbecue area. The roses are prickly and the kids could get hurt, Chastity explained when I protested. Cordelia's desk had disappeared from the hallway. I found it in the shed, piled high with old boxes. When I tried to bring it back into the house, Ivan gently but insistently stopped me. Dad, there's no room for it. The house is already set up. My books from the library were temporarily moved to the basement to make room for a playroom. The kids need space for a console and foosball table. Every protest I made was met in the same way. Concerned looks, whispers, and then a conversation about how I was worrying again and needed to rest and calm down. Every evening, Ivan brought me Melissa tea, which I tried to discreetly dispose of by pouring it into a flower pot or the bathroom sink. One morning as I passed Ivan and Chastity's bedroom, I heard a snippet of conversation. Worry. The papers are ready. All I need is his signature. What if he refuses? He won't. Dr. Harris said with his symptoms, he could easily be declared incompetent. Then I wouldn't need his signature. I'd be the legal guardian and I'd be in charge of the estate. What if he goes to his doctor? He might get a different opinion. He doesn't have a doctor here. He just moved here. Dr. Harris is an old friend of mine, and he'll arrange it. I stepped quietly away from the door, feeling my back grow cold. That's it. They want to declare me incompetent and take possession of the house. That's why that tea every night. Some drug must be in there to make me look lethargic, forgetful. It's like my mind is clear. We have to act, and fast. They were about to evict me to the basement. Ewan had offered yesterday to move my bed to a cozy room in the basement where it's quiet and cool. A little longer, and I would finally lose control of my own life. In the evening, when everyone was gathered for dinner, I decided to go for broke. Ivan, I said, trying to make my voice sound weak and uncertain. You were right. It's really hard for me to live alone. I'm glad you moved. My son looked at me in surprise. Really, Dad? I'm so glad you realized that. Yes, I nodded, looking down at my plate. And I was thinking, maybe we should make it official, so that the house would belong to all of us? There was silence at the table. I looked up. Iwan and Chastity were staring at me with ill-concealed triumph. What do you mean, Papa? Evan asked cautiously. Well, maybe we should redo the deeds. Make the house community property? Or I could gift it to you. After all, I don't have much left. Clifford, Chastity put her hand on mine. That's very noble of you. We appreciate it. I just want everything to be legal, I continued, looking at her with innocent eyes. Why don't we go see a lawyer next week? Sure, Dad. Ivan couldn't hide his joy. I'll organize everything. I paused. I need a small favor. I'd like to visit an old friend of mine in Midland, a lawyer named Gregory Pierce. He and I go way back, and I promised I'd stop by. Could you drive me up on Monday? Sure. Ivan nodded readily. Why do you want to see a lawyer? Oh, just to see him, I smiled. He and I used to be in the same club. I want to tell him about the new house. Show off a little. Şülüyorum. Okay, Ivan agreed. I'll take you back on Monday. After dinner, lying in my narrow bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought. The plan had come suddenly, but I felt it was the only way out. I won't let them take away my home, my freedom, my dignity. I won't let them declare me crazy for their greed. Maybe at 74 I'm not as fast and strong anymore, but my mind is still clear, and I know what to do. It's been a week since I promised Ivan and Chastity I'd give them a house. A week of pretense, humiliation, and quiet rage. Every morning I forced myself to smile at breakfast, to agree to all their suggestions, to feign senile forgetfulness and dementia. Dad, you didn't take your medicine again. Ivan shook his head, pointing to the pills I'd supposedly forgotten to take. Oh, it slipped my mind, I smiled guiltily, swallowing the pills with water. They didn't know that I'd long ago learned to hide the pills under my tongue and then spit them out discreetly. I didn't understand what exactly they were giving me, but the effect was obvious. Drowsiness, lethargy, confusion. The perfect symptoms for someone who's about to be declared incompetent. The trip to the lawyer never happened. First, Ivan said he had a work emergency. Then he said his car was in the shop. I didn't insist, realizing he wasn't going to drive me into town. Instead, I lurked and began to watch. On Monday, I spotted Chastity intercepting the mailman at the gate. Hiding behind the curtain in the parlor, I saw her quickly go through all the correspondence, set aside a few envelopes with official stamps, and toss the rest carelessly on the hall table. "Your papers here, Clifford," she called out to me, "and some flyers." I thanked her, but noticed that among the papers was not the monthly bank statement, which should have arrived that day. So they control both my mail and my finances. That evening, Ivan sat next to me in the living room, with a concerned look on his face. "Dad, we need to talk about money," he began. "Your pension comes on a card, but the house bills are pretty big. Maybe you should put me in charge of the finances. I could help you with your bills, your shopping." "Of course, son," I nodded readily. "Şaşkınım. I was going to ask you to do that myself. The numbers, the receipts, it's all jumbled up in my head." "Great," he visibly relaxed. "Then tomorrow we'll go to the bank and draw up a power of attorney. Or maybe I should just give you the card and tell you the PIN code," I suggested. "Why go through all the red tape?" Ivan shook his head. "No, Dad, we need to make everything official, so there won't be any problems later." I knew what kind of trouble he was talking about. Without an official authorization, any use of my card could be considered theft. Ivan was too careful to take any chances. The next day we did go to the bank. Ivan was unusually attentive, helping me out of the car, supporting me under his elbow. At the bank, he explained the situation to the manager. Elderly father, incipient dementia, needing help with financial management. I sat absent-mindedly, occasionally mumbling something inappropriate. When the manager asked me questions, I looked at Ivan confusedly, as if I didn't understand what was being asked of me. "See?" Ivan whispered to the woman. "He's like this a lot. He gets confused, forgets basic things." The manager nodded sympathetically and handed me the documents to sign. I looked at them for a long time, as if I didn't know what they were, then signed them with a trembling hand. The power of attorney to manage the account was complete. Returning home, I mentally went over the remaining options. The account in this bank was practically empty. Only my pension was lying there. I had long ago transferred my main savings to another bank, which Ivan didn't know about. But it will not be possible to hide it for long. Sooner or later, they will find statements, documents. Chastity met us at home. "The school called," she told Ivan. "They need to come tomorrow to sign some papers for the children's transfer." "Okay, I'll go in the morning," he nodded. "How did Dad behave at the bank? They talked about me like I wasn't there, or like I couldn't understand them." "Perfect," Ivan grinned. "A real absent-minded old man." The manager didn't even doubt that he needed help. I silently made my way to my room and sat on my bed. Rage and helplessness overwhelmed me. They had taken my home, my money, my dignity. They treated me like a child or an incapacitated old man. And worst of all, they believed they were doing the right thing. That evening at dinner, I noticed Ivan and Chastity exchanging glances and barely perceptible nods. Finally, Ivan coughed and put down his fork. "Dad, Chastity and I have been thinking." Remember what you said about a lawyer and remortgaging the house? I nodded, trying to look interested. Yes, of course. When can we go? We found a great notary, Chastity said. She's ready to come here tomorrow. You won't even have to drive anywhere. That's convenient, isn't it? Very, I agreed. What exactly are we doing? Yvonne and Chastity looked at each other again. Well, like we said, Yvonne began carefully. A deed of gift for the house. You were going to give it to us, weren't you? Some. Oh, yes, I pretended I'd just remembered. Of course I meant to. I just forgot. Old head. I smiled guiltily. Good, Chastity exhaled in relief. The notary will be here tomorrow at 11. We'll sign the papers, and that'll be that. What about the house payment? I asked innocently. Will I have to pay anything for the deed of gift? Don't worry, Dad. Ivan patted my hand. We'll pay for everything. You'll just have to sign it. And then the house would be yours? I clarified. Ours, Ivan corrected. It would still be yours too. We'll just be co-owners. That's a lie. I knew enough about the law to know that a deed of gift transferred ownership completely. I wouldn't remain the owner, not even nominally. But I nodded with a trusting smile. Great. I'm glad we've settled everything. After dinner, Chastity suggested we watch a family movie. I declined, citing fatigue. In my room, I sat at a small table by the window and started writing. I needed to make a plan while my head was still clear, while I could still remember all the details. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. Ivan brought my evening molasses tea. Here, Daddy, drink it before you go to bed. It'll help you sleep. Thank you, son. I took the cup and put it on the table. I'll drink it as soon as I finish my letter. A letter? Ivan looked up. Who are you writing to? To my old friend Howard, I smiled. I want to tell him about the new house, about how you moved in with me. Invite him to visit. Ah, Ivan relaxed. Finish it and drink your tea while it's hot. And go to bed. Tomorrow's a big day. When he went out, I took the cup and poured the contents into the flower pot on the windowsill. Poor plant. How many sleeping pills or tranquilizers had it absorbed these days? I wouldn't be surprised if it wilted soon. In the morning, I woke up earlier than usual. It was just starting to get light outside the window. I dressed quietly and slipped out of the room. The house was silent. Everyone was still asleep. I tiptoed into Evan's study, which used to be my library. Turning on a small desk lamp, I started looking for the deeds to the house. They had to be here. Iwan was too pedantic to keep important papers anywhere. The top drawer of the desk was locked. I pulled a bunch of keys out of my pocket, an old one, from the city apartment. One of the keys fit the lock. Inside were neatly folded folders of documents. I quickly flipped through them until I found what I was looking for. The sales contract for my house and the certificate of registration of ownership. I took a few pictures on my old cell phone, a button dinosaur as Hillary called it. Ivan and Chastity didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that at my age I could barely master a smartphone. What they didn't know was that this dinosaur was quite capable of taking pictures and emailing them. After closing the drawer, I put the key back in place and continued my search. There were some papers on the table, among which I noticed a gift form, already filled out, waiting only for my signature. I took a picture of it too, noting the name of the notary, Linda Fisher. I'd never heard of her, but I was sure she was either an acquaintance of Ivan's or had agreed to overlook some of the formalities for an extra fee. Next to her lay a medical chart, mine. I opened it carefully and was horrified. A diagnosis of dementia in the early stages, signed by Dr. Harris. A recommendation to establish guardianship. A statement from Ivan describing my symptoms, aggression, forgetfulness, paranoia. It's all prepared, all thought out. They were just waiting for me to sign the deed of gift so they could terminate my rights. I photographed these documents as well, making sure the frame was clear and all the details were legible. Then I carefully put everything back and turned off the lamp. I had to get back to my room before anyone woke up. At 7 in the morning, the house began to wake up. I could hear Chastity making breakfast, the kids getting ready for summer camp, Ivan talking on the phone. At 8, there was a knock on my door. Daddy, are you awake? Chastity's voice sounded strangely affectionate. Breakfast is ready, and don't forget, the notary is coming today. I remember, I said. I'll be right there. At breakfast, Ivan and Chastity were unusually attentive. They put food on my plate, asked me how I slept, if I was worried about anything. The children seemed to be aware of what was going on too, acting quieter than usual, looking at me with a strange expression. It was either pity or guilt. After breakfast, the children and I will go to summer camp, Chastity said. Akano will be back when the notary arrives. I'll stay with you, Papa, Even added. We can sit in the garden if you like. It's supposed to be a warm day. I agreed, acting happy at the prospect of spending time with my son. In fact, I had the feeling that they were afraid to leave me alone. What if I changed my mind or did something unpredictable? When Chastity and the children left, Ivan and I went out into the garden. I sat down in a chair under an old apple tree, the only place that hadn't been reconstructed. It's beautiful here, Ivan said, looking around. It's a great place for a summer vacation. This isn't a vacation for me, I said quietly. This is my home. Ivan looked at me worriedly. Of course, Dad. It will still be your home. It's just that we'll be living here, too. A big family, as it should be. As it should be, I echoed. We were silent for a moment. I looked at the garden I'd worked so hard to create. A lot had changed in the last week. My favorite roses, the vegetable beds, the beds of perennials were gone. In their place were an inflatable pool, a barbecue area, plastic children's toys. There was almost nothing left of my garden, my sanctuary. You know, Ivan, I said, looking away, when I was young, I dreamed of a big house with a garden. But your mother wanted to live in the city, closer to work, the stores, the theaters. I gave in to her. She was right. It's more convenient with a small child in the city. We bought an apartment and stayed there. All these years I'd been putting off the dream of a house for later, for retirement. Even stepped awkwardly from foot to foot. And now you have a house, and we all live in it together. Isn't that what you wanted? Not exactly, I shook my head. I wanted a house where I could be my own boss, a place that I could customize to my own taste, a place where every corner would remind me of your mother, of our life, of what was important to us. Dad, I even sat down next to me, you're still the master. It's just, you're getting old. It's hard for you to take care of such a big house, the grounds. We're helping you. Saurity, by throwing out my stuff, by destroying the garden I planted, locking me in a small room? Is that helping? Yvonne sighed. You're being dramatic. We've simply adapted the house to suit the needs of the whole family, and your room is quite comfortable. What about the medicine you put in my tea? Is that help too? The son jerked as if struck by a blow. What? What are you talking about? Don't pretend, Ivan. I looked him straight in the eye. Every night you bring me tea with molasses in it, after which I can't concentrate, I get confused. Forget basic things. What do you put in it? Sleeping pills? Tranquilizers? Dad, it's paranoia, Ivan stood up. You can see there's something wrong with you. That's why we're worried. You need help, supervision. I need my house, I said firmly. My garden. My life. You have all that, Ivan was almost shouting. Just accept that you can't live alone anymore. I rose slowly from my chair. And if I don't? Then, he lowered his voice, we'll have to go to court, make custody official. Believe me, it would be worse for everyone. We stood across from each other, father and son who had become strangers. I used to hold him in my arms, teach him to walk, read him bedtime stories. Once he looked at me with admiration, considered me the strongest, the smartest. What happened to us? When did love and respect become greed and manipulation? Okay, I said quietly. I'll sign the deed of gift. The house will be yours. Ivan breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, Dad. You'll see. Everything will be the same. Just from a legal point of view. I know what will happen, I interrupted him. I'm not a fool, even though you're trying to make me one. He was silent, averting his eyes. At 11, the notary arrived, a young woman with a cold stare and a fake smile. Chastity and the children had returned by this time, and the whole family gathered in the living room. The atmosphere was reminiscent of some strange holiday. Chastity had even baked a cake and opened a bottle of champagne. Now, Mr. Reeves, the notary, laid out the papers on the table. Do you understand what you're about to do? Yes, I nodded. I'm giving my house to my son and his family. And you're doing this voluntarily, without coercion? I looked at Ivan, at Chastity, at the children who were watching curiously. Absolutely voluntarily. Good. She handed me a pen. Then sign here, here, and here. I slowly took the pen, twirled it in my fingers, looked at the document. The deed of gift was well written. I was transferring all rights to the house to Ivan Reeves without any conditions or reservations. Dad? Ivan coughed nervously. Is something wrong? No, everything is fine. I smiled and signed in the specified places. The notary took the documents, ran her eyes over them, made sure everything was in order. Congratulations, Mr. Reeves, Jr. You are now the owner of a beautiful home. Chastity uncorked the champagne and poured it into glasses. The children clapped happily. Ivan raised his glass. To a new chapter in the life of our family. I pretended to drink, but did not touch the champagne. I felt humiliated and powerless. They'd gotten what they wanted. The house belonged to Ivan now. I am no longer the master, no longer the owner. Just an old man, tolerated out of mercy. After the notary left, Chastity took her lunch. The children went to play in the yard and Ivan sat next to me. You did the right thing, Dad. It's better for everyone. For everyone or for you? I asked quietly. For everyone, he said firmly. And for you, too. Believe me, with your fortune, it's better not to have such worries as a house and land. My condition, I grinned bitterly. Chardonnay, the one you created with your medications and manipulations? Ivan sighed. There you go again. Dad, no one is poisoning you. It's just regular sedative tea, and no one is manipulating you. We're really worried about you. I didn't argue. What's the point? They already got what they wanted. In the evening after dinner, Ivan traditionally brought me tea with Melissa. Have some, Dad. It's been a hard day. You need to rest. I took the cup, pretended to drink, then put it on the table. You know, Ivan, I've been meaning to ask you for a long time. Why did you decide to move now? What happened to your apartment? Ivan wrinkled his nose a little. Well, as I said, we rented it out. But why? Were you having financial problems? No, just, he hesitated. Just thought you might need some help. After 50 years of living on your own? I raised my eyebrows. Form, that's an odd coincidence, don't you think? Okay, Ivan sighed. Yes, we had some difficulties. We had to take out a loan for the kids' education, a car. Chastity wanted to open her own design studio, so we invested. But it didn't work out. We got into debt. And then I buy a house for $200,000. I finished for him. Don't think of us as villains, Dad. Ivan frowned. Right. Yes, we thought it would solve two problems at once. Your loneliness and our financial difficulties. What's wrong with that? Nothing if you had talked to me honestly. But you chose to invade my home, take it away, and declare me incompetent. We didn't. I've seen the papers, Ivan, I interrupted him. The petition for guardianship, the medical report from your Dr. Harris. It's all ready to go to court. The son turned pale. You went through my papers? I have the right to go where I want and see what I want in my house, I countered. It's not your house anymore, Ivan said sharply, and then bit his tongue when he realized he'd spoken. Now you're telling the truth, I nodded. Finally. He stood up. Dad, I didn't mean to. Look, we're doing this for your own good. Your condition is deteriorating. You're becoming suspicious, aggressive. You need supervision, control. And you need my house. I got up too. Well, it's yours now. Congratulations. Daddy, leave me alone, please. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. Ivan hesitated but then went out, quietly closing the door behind him. I sat on the bed, looking out the window at the darkening garden. They think they've won. They think the old man is broken, humiliated, and subdued. What they don't know is that I've been preparing for this moment for a long time. Pulling out an old cell phone from under the mattress, I checked the photos I had taken that morning. Everything came out clearly, all the documents readable. Now I need to act fast before they catch on and start the next phase of their plan, officially declaring me incompetent. I opened the email application and started writing a message. The addressee was Gregory Pierce, My old friend and attorney with whom we had discussed the legal aspects of my move and home purchase on more than one occasion. A man I trust completely. Greg, I'm in trouble. I need your help right away. The morning was overcast. Low clouds hung over the garden, threatening to rain. I sat on the veranda, watching Chastity direct the workers installing the new garden furniture. My old wicker chairs and table had already been taken to the dump. Too shabby, Daddy. Not safe. Now there will be a fancy faux rattan set. Practical, modern, impersonal. 3 days have passed since I signed the gift deed. 3 days of pretense, humiliation, and quiet rage. I continued to play the part of the dutiful, somewhat confused old man. I agreed with all of Yvonne and Chastity's decisions, didn't mind when they threw out my things, obediently took my pills, which I still hid under my tongue, drank my sedative tea, pouring it into a flower pot when no one was watching. I waited to hear back from Gregory. My old friend and lawyer had never let me down, but now every minute seemed like an eternity. What if he was on vacation? What if he changed his email address? What if... The phone in my pocket vibrated. I carefully pulled it out, shielding it from view with the palm of my hand. A message from Greg. Got your email. The situation is serious. We need to meet in person. When can you get out to the city? I quickly typed a reply. Difficult. I'm being followed. My son won't let me out of the house. It didn't take long for Greg to respond. Got it. Here's an idea. There will be an ambulance outside your house at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. The medic is a friend of mine. Fake a heart attack. They'll take you to the hospital. I'll meet you there. I felt a surge of hope. The plan was risky, but doable. The important thing was that Ivan and Chastity believed I was having a heart attack. Daddy, you're sitting in the draft again. Chastity's voice snapped me out of my musings. You'll catch a cold. Let's go inside. I obediently stood up and followed her, hiding my phone in my pocket. Suddenly she turned around. What's that you've got there? Where? I clapped my eyes innocently. In my pocket. A phone? What do you need it for? You have a home phone. Habit, I shrugged. I'd been carrying it around my whole life, and it was hard to get used to it. Chastity held out her hand. Give it to me. I'll see if it still works. Maybe I should replace it with something newer, something with bigger buttons, something for the elderly. I reluctantly handed the phone over, mentally glad I'd closed my correspondence with Greg in time. Chastity twirled the phone in her hands, pressing a few buttons. The battery's almost dead, she said. It's an ancient model. Yvonne and I will think about a new phone for you. In the meantime, I'll put this one on the charger. She left with my phone, and I felt a chill run down my spine. What if she checked my messages? Find correspondence with Greg? Pictures of documents? My whole plan would fall apart. But I had no choice but to pretend everything was fine. I spent the rest of the day as usual, reading in the living room, or rather pretending to read while thinking about tomorrow's plan, watching TV with the kids, having dinner with my family. In the evening, Ivan brought me tea with molasses. How are you feeling, Dad? He asked with feigned concern. A little tired, I answered. Age is taking its toll. Of course, rest. Tomorrow I'm going into town on business, but Chastity will be home. If you need anything, you can ask her. I nodded, mentally thanking fate for the coincidence. Ivan not being home was one less thing to worry about. I couldn't sleep for a long time that night. I went over the plan of action in my head, thinking about what I would tell Greg, what documents I would need to prepare. In the end, fatigue took its toll, and I fell into a restless sleep. I woke up early in the morning, feeling a strange excitement, almost like before an important meeting in my youth. Only the stakes were much higher now, my freedom, my dignity, my life. At 9:30, I went out into the garden, ostensibly to get some fresh air. Chastity was watching me from the kitchen window. I could feel her gaze, but pretended not to notice. I walked slowly along the paths, sat on a bench, admired the flowers that had miraculously survived the renovation. At 5 minutes past 11, when the clock hand was inexorably approaching the appointed time, I grabbed my chest and slowly settled on the ground. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chastity run out of the house. Clifford, what's the matter with you? She came running over and sat down beside me. Heart! I moaned, squeezing my eyes shut against the pain. It burns. I can't breathe. Now, now! Chastity pulled out her cell phone, dialed a number. "Hello, an ambulance, please. My father-in-law. I think he's having a heart attack." She dictated the address, listened to the dispatcher's recommendations, then turned to me. "Be patient, Clifford. The ambulance is on its way. Maybe some nitroglycerin? Do you have any pills?" In my room, in the nightstand," I whispered, glad to myself that the performance had worked. Chastity ran into the house and I continued to lie on the grass, mimicking the heavy breathing and pain. She returned a few minutes later with the pills and a glass of water. "Here you go. Put it under your tongue like the doctor said." I obediently took the pill, but did nothing with it, just hid it in the palm of my hand. Nitroglycerin dilates blood vessels and lowers blood pressure. I didn't need it now. I needed a clear head and a steady hand. At exactly 10 o'clock, an ambulance stopped at the gate. Two medics walked quickly into the garden with stretchers. One of them, a tall man with a thick beard, winked at me in a way that Chastity didn't notice. "Greg's acquaintance," I realized. "What's wrong?" he asked, sitting down next to me and pulling out a stethoscope. "My heart," I moaned again. A sharp pain radiating to my left arm. The medic listened to my heart, took my blood pressure, shined a flashlight in my eyes. "It looks like angina," he said, turning to Chastity. "We need to get to the hospital right away for a full workup." Of course, she nodded. "I'll pack his things and come with you." "No need," the medic said quickly. "In the emergency room is a long procedure, paperwork. Better come back in an hour or an hour and a half when we'll have him settled in the room." Chastity hesitated. I could see the worry in her eyes, and not for my health, but for a plan that could go wrong. "Which hospital will you take him to?" she asked. "The city hospital. The cardiac ward," the medic answered as he helped his colleague put me on the stretcher. "I'll call my husband," Chastity said. "He's in town now, so he can come straight to the hospital." "As you wish," the medic shrugged. "Just don't hold us up. Every minute counts." They loaded me into the car, closed the doors, and drove away from the house. As soon as we were out of sight, I sat down on the stretcher. "Thanks for your help. Are you from Greg?" "Yes," the bearded man nodded. "My name is Michael. Greg is waiting for us at the cafe across from the hospital. We'll drop you off there and then pick you up in 2 hours and bring you back home. Ostensibly after a checkup, diagnosed with unstable angina." What if my son or daughter-in-law gets to the hospital early and doesn't find me there? "Don't worry, everything's been thought out. Your name will be on the admission list. The nurse at the reception desk will say that you have been taken away for examination and ask you to wait." The plan was well thought out. I could feel Greg's hand in it. My old friend always had a keen eye for detail and an ability to envision every possible scenario. The ambulance stopped in the alley behind Martha's Cafe. Michael helped me out, and we went through the back door. Waiting for me in a separate office was Greg, a tall, gray-haired man with shrewd eyes and aristocratic posture. "Cliff!" He gave me a big hug. "It's good to see you, old boy, even under these circumstances." "Greg, you don't know how glad I am to see you." I felt tears come to my throat. For the first time in a long time, I was with someone I trusted completely. "Have a seat." Greg pointed to a chair. "We don't have much time to talk about this. I've carefully studied the documents you sent me. The situation is serious, but not hopeless." I sat down feeling a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. "They took the house from me, Greg. They made me sign a deed of gift. It's all Ivan's now." "Technically, yes," Greg nodded. "But we can challenge the deed of gift on the grounds that it was signed under duress and fraud. The photos of the documents you sent, especially the medical report of this Dr. Harris, would be good evidence." 2 weeks passed in a drawn-out wait. After my meeting with Greg, I returned home and continued to play the role of a sick, weakening old man. Ivan and Chastity seemed content with my condition, weak enough to not fight back, but not so severe as to cause fear for my life. A perfect balance for their plans. Every night, Ivan brought me molasses tea, and every night I found a way to dispose of it discreetly. Chastity controlled my pills, standing by me as I swallowed them, sometimes even checking to see if I had hidden them under my tongue. I had to be extra careful. The house continued to change before my eyes. My things disappeared one by one. "Making room," as Chastity had said. The bookcases from the library were taken to the dump. replaced by a video game console, a big TV, and a comfortable couch for Ivan. The boxes of my books were moved to the garage, where they stood beneath the rain dripping off the roof. I didn't protest. Humility and submission was what they expected to see, and that's what I was giving them. In rare moments of solitude, I checked my phone, waiting for a message from Greg. He wrote briefly, "Everything is going according to plan. The paperwork is ready, waiting for the right moment." Wednesday morning, Ivan came into my room looking serious. "Dad, we need to talk. I took the day off from work. Chastity is taking care of the kids. We have time to discuss the important things." "Of course, son." I pulled myself up on the pillows. "What is it?" "Dr. Harris believes," Ivan sat on the edge of the bed, "that your condition requires constant monitoring, perhaps even specialized care." "Are you talking about a nursing home?" I gave him a frightened look. "No, no," he waved his hands hastily. "Not a nursing home, just a special facility with medical staff where you'll be under constant supervision." "How is that different from a nursing home?" I asked. "It's more modern facility," Ivan chose his words, "with individualized care, with comfortable conditions, almost like a sanatorium." I was silent, looking at my son. He continued nervously. "Chastity and I have already found out everything. The conditions there are excellent. A separate room, a garden for walks, socializing with peers, and most importantly, constant medical care." "And how much does it cost?" I asked quietly. Ivan hesitated. "Not cheap, of course, but your pension should be enough for basic care, and if you need additional services, we'll help you." "My pension," I shook my head. "Son, what about our house? I thought we were going to live here together as a family." "We will be a family," he assured me fervently. "It's just that you'll live in a place where you'll be properly cared for. Chastity and the children and I will visit you often." "How often?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Well, as often as we can. The kids have school, we have work, but we'll come on holidays." I turned back to the window, pretending to try to hold back my tears. "When do you want to send me there?" "Don't say that, Dad." Ivan put his hand on my shoulder. "We're not sending you. We're taking care of your health. Dr. Harris said we can do the paperwork as early as next week, but first we have some formalities to attend to." "What kind of formalities?" "Legal," he shrugged. With your pension, your accounts, your papers, nothing complicated, just bureaucracy." "I see," I nodded, still looking out the window. "You want to take custody of me so you can manage my money?" "Dad, don't say that." Ivan squeezed my shoulder. "It's not a guardianship. It's a trust. So I can help you with your finances. You know that sometimes you get confused about bills. Forget to pay something important." I remained silent as I continued to act depressed and grieving. Ivan sighed. "I realize this is not an easy decision, but trust me, it's best for everyone, especially for you." When he walked out, I pulled out my phone and texted Greg. "They're going to put me in a nursing home and make guardianship arrangements. Time is short." The reply came a few minutes later. "Tomorrow. Be ready at 10 in the morning." That evening at dinner, I was unaccustomedly animated. I asked the children about school, Chastity about her plans to remodel the house, Ivan about work. They looked at each other, surprised at my sudden interest in life. "You're in a good mood, Dad," Ivan said. "Feeling better?" "Much," I smiled. "The medication must have helped, and your concern, of course." Chastity squinted suspiciously. "Indeed, you seem more alert. Maybe I should reconsider the dosage of the medication." "I don't think so." I shook my head. "I'm fine. Just a good day." After dinner, I retired to my room early, claiming I was tired. Ivan, as usual, brought me tea. "Here, have some before you go to bed. It'll help you sleep." "Thank you, son." I took the cup. "You take care of me as I used to take care of you." A shadow flashed across his face, either of guilt or embarrassment, but he quickly got over the emotion. "Of course, Dad. Good night." When the door closed behind him, I poured the tea into the pot with the plant and went to bed, pulling the blanket up to my chin. I needed a good night's sleep before tomorrow. The morning was sunny and clear, as if nature had decided to support me. I got up earlier than usual, showered, shaved thoroughly, and put on my best house suit. When I came out to breakfast, Chastity raised her eyebrows in surprise. Clifford, you're so... You're all dolled up. Where are you going? Nowhere in particular, I smiled. It's just a nice day. It's a sin to spend it in a robe. Ivan looked up from his paper. Dad, if you want, we can go for a walk in the garden today. The weather's fine. I'd love to, I nodded. Maybe after breakfast? We sat at the table, talking about nothing. The kids were eating cereal. Chastity was flipping through a glossy magazine. Ivan was checking something on his phone. Just a normal family morning. No one suspected that in an hour everything would change. At exactly 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Insistent, demanding. Chastity flinched. Who could it be this early? I'll get it. Ivan got up from the table and went out into the hallway. I heard him open the door. The sound of unfamiliar voices. Official, stern. Then Ivan exclaimed, What? What eviction? There's some mistake. 3 men in strict suits entered the dining room. One of them, tall with a neat beard, held a folder with documents. Good afternoon, he said, addressing me. Mr. Clifford Reeves? Yes, that's me. I stood up, trying not to show excitement. Akane, I'm Jonathan Wheeler, the bailiff. He held out his ID card to me. And these are my colleagues, Officers Burton and Price. We have a warrant to evict you from this residence. Eviction? Chastity jumped out of her chair. What the hell are you talking about? This is our house. I'm afraid not, ma'am. The bailiff opened the folder. According to the deed, this house is owned by Sunset Investments. Here's the certificate of title, the deed of sale, and the eviction order. Yvonne snatched the documents from the bailiff's hands, frantically looking through them. There's some mistake. The house belongs to me. I have a deed of gift from my father. A deed of gift from June 9th of this year, clarified the bailiff. It is null and void because Mr. Reeves no longer owned the house when he signed it. He had sold it to Sunset Investments Corporation on June 7th, 2 days before he signed the deed of gift. Ivan turned pale and turned to me. Dad, what's going on? What is he talking about? I looked at my son calmly. About the fact that I sold the house before I signed your deed of gift. A deed of gift is invalid. You can't give something you don't own. But, how? Ivan looked from me to the bailiff in confusion. When did you do it? You didn't leave the house. I signed the purchase agreement at the hospital when I was supposedly being examined after a heart attack, I explained. Greg, my old friend and lawyer, organized the whole thing, and the notary notarized the deal right there. Chastity rushed over to Ivan, clutching at his arm. He couldn't have done that. He's incapacitated. We have a medical report. A fake report from your Dr. Harris? I grinned. The court has already seen it, and the real medical examination I underwent at the hospital the same day. 3 independent doctors have confirmed that I am fully competent and sane. That's impossible, Ivan whispered. You couldn't. I could, I shrugged. You just underestimated the old man. Did you think I was weak and confused and wouldn't notice how you manipulated me? How you put sedatives in my tea to make me look lethargic? How you throw away my stuff? How do you prepare the paperwork to declare me incompetent? We've been taking care of you, Yvonne exclaimed. You were alone, sick. No, son, I shook my head. You took care of my house and my money. I was just a nuisance, an old man to get rid of. Mr. Reeves, the bailiff intervened, we have another document for you. It's a summons for financial abuse of an elderly person. He held out another envelope to Ivan. The son mechanically took it, still not believing what was happening. Financial abuse? Dad, are you suing us? Yes, I nodded, and I provided all the evidence photos of the fake medical report, recordings of your conversations about the guardianship appointment, the testimony of the hospital nurse who saw Chastity intercepting my mail. You recorded our conversations? Chastity turned pale. Every day since you invaded my house, I confirmed. My old button dinosaur, as Hillary called it, was quite capable of doing that. You can't evict us, Ivan turned to the bailiff. There are children here. We have nowhere to go. I'm sorry, sir, the bailiff replied, but we have a court order. You have 3 hours to collect your personal belongings. Anything that is not removed within that time will be described and put into custody. The children, who had been watching in silence, suddenly burst into tears. Hillary rushed to Chastity. Mom, where will we go? What will happen to our things? Chastity hugged her daughter, throwing angry glances at me. Don't worry, honey. We'll figure something out. It's just a mistake, a misunderstanding. It's not a mistake, I shook my head. And you know it. Ivan suddenly collapsed to his knees in front of me. Daddy, please don't do this. Forgive us. We were wrong, but we are your family. Where will we live? What will happen to the children? You didn't think about that when you evicted me to the basement, I replied coldly. When you planned to put me in a nursing home. When you threw away Cordelia's things. When they poisoned me to make me look insane. We never... Don't lie, Ivan, I interrupted him. No more lies. I know the truth, and so will the court. You won't do this. Chastity stepped toward me, eyes blazing. You will not dishonor your own son. You will not destroy his career, his grandchildren's future. I'm not ruining anything, I replied calmly. You destroyed everything when you decided that you could take away my home, my freedom, and my dignity. When you decided that old age is a disease and old people are a burden that you can get rid of. The bailiff coughed delicately. Mr. Reeves, you must leave the premises as well. The new owner will take over the house this afternoon. Of course, I nodded. My things are already packed. Your things? Ivan raised his eyebrows in surprise. When did you have time to pack? Yesterday, while you were in town, I explained. My friend Robert Henderson helped me. Everything of value to me is already in the car, waiting for me around the corner. You planned all this, Ivan whispered. You've thought of everything. Yes, I nodded. Just like you planned to get rid of me. The only difference was that my plan had worked first. I turned to the bailiff. Can I go now, or do you need any more signatures? It's all right, Mr. Reeves, he held out his hand to me. You're free to go. I walked toward the exit, feeling the eyes of my family on me, distrustful, angry, confused. At the door, I turned around. Goodbye. I hope this lesson will be good for you. And when your children grow up, you won't find yourselves in the situation you put me in. No one answered. I stepped out onto the porch and took a deep breath of the fresh morning air. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Waiting around the corner was Robert Henderson's car, my neighbor who had become a true friend over the months. Shaman, Mom. Everything all right, Cliff? He asked as I got into the passenger seat. Everything's fine, I smiled. Let's get out of here. We pulled onto the main road and headed for Midland, where Greg was waiting for me to complete the formalities. The plan had worked perfectly. I'd sold the house to Sunset Investments for $800,000, less than its real value, but enough to buy a new place and leave me with a decent amount of money in my account. Sunset Investments, as it later turned out, was owned by a close friend of Greg's who had agreed to the scheme to help me out. He would resell the house in a few months at a small profit, and in the meantime rent it out to decent people. The deed of gift I'd signed in Ivan's favor was invalid. You can't gift something you don't already own. And the accusations of financial abuse, backed up by recorded conversations, photographs of documents, and witness testimony, ensured that Ivan and Chastity wouldn't be able to challenge the court's decision. A month later, I moved into a small, cozy house on the outskirts of Springfield, a town 2 hours from Midland. It was one story, with a porch, a garden, and a view of the lake. I could have afforded a bigger house, but I decided not to make the same mistake. Luxury housing attracts attention, and I wanted peace and quiet. I furnished the house simply but tastefully. Cordelia's desk, which I'd managed to save, and her silver-frame photograph took pride of place. Next to it are shelves of favorite books that Robert had smuggled out of the garage before the rainwater got there. None of the previous acquaintances, except Greg and the Hendersons, knew my new address. I changed my phone number, started a new email account. Ivan tried to contact me through Greg several times, first with threats to countersue, then with pleas for forgiveness. I didn't respond. Some wounds are too deep to be healed with words. The financial abuse trial was 3 months later. I didn't attend in person. Greg represented my interests. Ivan and Chastity got off with a fine and probation, but the stain on their reputations remained, especially for Ivan, who worked in the financial industry, where trust is key. I didn't gloat, didn't feel satisfaction at their punishment, only sadness that the people they loved were capable of such betrayal. And also a quiet pride that I managed to protect myself, did not let myself turn into a helpless victim. I quickly made acquaintances in my new home. The neighbors, mostly the same pensioners, turned out to be friendly people. The local library accepted me into a book club. At the community center, I began to lead a circle for children interested in geology. I shared the knowledge I had accumulated over half a century of work. Sometimes the Hendersons came to visit me, the only people I trusted with my new address. We sat on the veranda, drank tea, reminisced about the past, made plans for the future. Robert helped me with gardening. Jean shared recipes for home baking. And then Meredith came into my life, the same neighbor with the perceptive blue eyes with whom we had once discussed the difference between loneliness and solitude. She found me through mutual friends, wrote me a letter, and suggested we meet. Our first meeting after a long separation took place in a small cafe in downtown Springfield. We talked for 4 hours without noticing the time. I told her everything, about my son's betrayal, about losing my home, about my plan for revenge. She listened attentively, not interrupting, not judging. "You know, Clifford," she said when I had finished, "you did the right thing. To let them take away your freedom and dignity would have been a real betrayal of yourself." We saw each other regularly from then on. Sometimes we walked along the lakeshore. Sometimes we went to the local theater. Sometimes we just sat on my veranda watching the sunset. I don't know if you could call our relationship an affair. At our age, that word sounds almost ridiculous. But we definitely became closer than just friends. A year had passed since those memorable events. I was sitting on the veranda of my new house, watching the sun sink below the horizon. Meredith sat in the rocking chair next to me, leafing through a new novel. From the open window came the sounds of classical music, a Beethoven symphony, Cordelia's favorite. I thought about how my life had changed over the year, about losses and gains, about betrayal and loyalty, that even at 75, you can start over if you have the courage. "What are you thinking about?" Meredith asked, keeping her eyes on the book. "About life," I answered. "About how it's never too late to stand up for yourself." She looked up and smiled. "And it's never too late to be happy." I looked at the sunset, at the cozy house, at the woman beside me, and I realized she was right. It's never too late. Even when it seems that everything is lost, even when the closest people betray you, even when the years take their toll, there is always a chance to change everything. You just have to find the strength to take the first step.